All right, guys, today we're talking about the mean, median, mode, range, and possible outliers. So running back some of these things, we've definitely seen them before in math, but just as a reminder, the mode is the value that appears the most often. Now, if there is a tie, it is possible to have more than one mode. So for instance, if your data set was 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, well, 7 and 8 are both repeated twice, so an equal number of times. So your mode would actually be 7 and 8. You have two modes, so that is possible. The range, however, is the difference between the lowest value and the highest value. So if my lowest value is 7 and my highest is 9, the range is the difference between them. So you take the larger number minus the smaller number, and our range is 2. That is a measure of kind of how spread out our data is. So it's the largest number minus the smallest number. So difference between the lowest and the highest. The median, okay, think of like when you're driving right down the road, in the middle of the road, not the striped line, but like, you know, if there was 2 lanes, I guess, or 2 different directions going here, it's a terrible road. The center is called the median. Like the little cement barrier in the middle. That's called the median. So that helps me remember the median is the middle number. Now, it is important. They have to be ordered from lowest to highest. They have to be in order to find the middle number. So if you had a set of 5 data, and let's just make it easy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So an odd number of data, there is an exact center, right? You can kind of count in from each side. There's an exact center. The median would be 3. However, if you have an even number of data, like say 6 pieces of data, what you do is you have to go to the middlemost 2 and find halfway between them their average. So you'd actually have to do 3 plus 4 divided by 2, which ends up giving you back 3.5, right? Halfway between 3 and 4. This is 7 divided by 2, 3.5 would then be your median. The mean is the total of all of the values divided by how many of them there are, right? It's the average. Mean is the average. So you'd add them all up, divide by how many numbers you added up, and you have your average. Last thing is, what is an outlier? Okay, and we'll get to a more formal definition next time, but for now, it's basically data that is an abnormal distance away from the majority of the data. So, right, like 7, 7, 8, 9, those are all kind of close together. Even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seem relatively spread out, and that's fine. Okay. However, if we had some data that was like 3, 3, 4, 4, 107, okay, I might say 107 seems to be pretty far away from the rest of the data, or kind of where they're grouped. And so that's, this is a pretty extreme example, but that would definitely be an outlier. Okay, and outliers are important because when you're analyzing data, you want to say, why is there an outlier, right? Is that a valid outlier? Was there something wrong, etc.? So, all right, let's take a look at some examples. Okay, so here's our first example. Let's just focus on that one for now. Find the mean, median, mode, range, and identify any outliers for the following data. So ages of 11 children surveyed inside a Toys R Us with parental consent, in case you were wondering. So I guess there's 11 of them here, right? They told us that, so I don't have to count how many there are. Well, let's start with the mean. And remember, the mean is the average. So to find the mean, we actually need to add them all up. Like 2 plus 3 plus 3. Like add them all up and then divide by 11. Okay, so let's add them all up. 2 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 5. Gotta be careful, of course, that you don't accidentally type in the wrong number. But there we go. If we add up those 11 numbers, we get a total of 55. And this is going to divide nicely. And 55 divided by 11, no calculator necessary, we get a nice mean. Our mean, or average, is 5. So if you were describing this data here, you could say that the average number would be 5. Now, is that a great descriptor of our list? I mean, maybe it's not terrible. It depends on your list sometimes. Okay, let's see if we can find next the median. So luckily for us, they're already in order. We don't have to stop and rewrite them. So they're in nice order. By the way, if they're not in order, that's exactly what you need to do at the start. So in this case, because there's 11 of them, if we go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's the 6th one in. Okay, it's like if you did half of 11 and rounded it up. So that would be the 6th one in. So 6th one in, you can kind of tell that's right. It's got like 5 on this side, 5 on this side. It's directly in the middle. That is our median. So when they're in order, the median is exactly in the middle. Our median is 5. Okay, the mode. What is the most repeated number? That appears to be 3. It's repeated 3 times. Nothing else is repeated 3 times, so 3 definitely wins here. So only one mode if 1 is repeated the most. So it's not just any number that's repeated. You wouldn't list 5 here. It's the number that's repeated the most. Okay, so our mode is 3. And then the range is the largest value, which is 9, minus the smallest value, which is 2. So the range, or how spread out our data, is over 7 units, right? To go from 2 to 9, there's 7 units in our spread. Okay, lastly, are there any numbers in here that stand out as an outlier? I don't know, nothing looks abnormally far, right? I'd say these are all pretty normal values. Okay, let's take a look at our next set. Second one, find the mean, median, mode, and range, and identify outliers for this one. Ages of 8 students in the 3rd grade. 7, 7, 8, 8, 8, 8, 9, 27. Ah, okay. I think I've seen that movie. Okay, so we've got something that's probably an outlier here, right? Like right away, thinking we've got an outlier. Well, let's go ahead and find the mean. So again, the mean is the average, so we need to add them all up. 7 plus dot, 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 right? Add all those up, and there are 8 of them, right? It actually told me over here, so I didn't have to count how many there were, but let's go ahead and find our mean. So add them all up. 7 plus 7 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 9 plus 27 is 82. And 82 divided by 8. Whew, not a nice whole number. That's okay. It's not a terrible number. 10 and a quarter. 82 over 8, which is, over 8, which is 10 and a quarter. So the average is 10 and a quarter. Okay, so the average from our number is 10 and a quarter. What about the median? Now, because there's 8 pieces of data, there is no exact center. So in this case, the 4th one from each end, right? So if it divides nicely, like that, then we want to go to the 4th and the next number up, which would be 5th. The 4th and 5th terms here. And you want to find halfway between them. Okay, however, because they happen to be the same number, of course, halfway between 8 and 8 is just 8. So you would normally like add them up, divide by 2, but you're just going to get 16 over 2, which is 8, right? Okay, so our median is 8. That would be halfway between these two numbers. Okay, the mode, what is the most repeated number? Well, that is also 8. So some of these have the same value, that's fine. The range, the range here is going to be pretty big. We've got 27 is the largest number, minus the smallest number, which is 7. So our range, our data is pretty spread out. It goes over 20 units from the smallest to the largest. Okay, so pretty big range there. And then, of course, I don't identify any outliers. Outliers, I think just 27, just one of them. And 27 is definitely an outlier. Above, I would say, are outliers, maybe none, right? If I can spell none. Okay. Now, what do you think this outlier affected? If we were to say remove the outlier, what do you think would change the most? Well, the median might move, right? Because we'd have one less number. Okay. The mode, I think that would stay the same, right? What about the mean? Well, certainly if we take out 27, our average is going to be a whole lot lower. So one thing we can get from this so far is outliers affect the mean for sure. What else do you think they affect a lot? I mean, having to use 27 as the largest number instead of, say, 9, I think our range gets very skewed. The spread of our data looks way more spread out than normal. Now, maybe the median would change a little bit. Maybe probably not the mode, though, right? Because the most frequent probably wouldn't be an outlier. But outliers greatly affect the mean and the range. Okay, so those are some of the things to look at when you describe data. When they have outliers, using the mean or the average is not a great way to describe your data. For instance, when they talk about average, income in a particular area, if you have some ranch homes with $1 million homes, well, that household income is going to greatly skew that area, right? Because they make way more money than most families. So you might have some outliers in an area. The middle number, right, if you were to put them all in order, sometimes that's a good value of spread. Sometimes the most frequently picked number, right, is a great way to describe your data. Like, hey, on average, if you were to pick a number out of these 8, you'd probably pick 8, right, because it's listed the most. And the range just tells us how spread apart our data is. There's other measures of spread. We'll talk about those later on in the chapter. But this is really it for now. We're just talking about how to find mean, median, mode, range. Remember, mean is the average, median's the middle, mode's the most repeated, and you can have more than one if there's a tie. Range is the biggest minus the smallest, and an outlier is something that's like pretty far away from the data where we go, yeah, that looks a little weird. Okay, that's it. We'll do more examples in class.